In tonight's headlines, dozens of banks in the city vowed to ease loans in the Hong Kong Monetary Authority's task force to help borrowers and small businesses. The hospital authority blames an uncommon false pH test result for an incident in which a patient's feeding tube was inserted into his airway and left undetected at Queen Elizabeth Hospital in June. And no Hongkongers are involved in the plane crash in Thailand, which took 9 people's lives, including 5 Chinese tourists.
The Hong Kong Monetary Authority announced today that a new task force was set up to mediate between banks and small and medium-sized enterprises facing pressure from the banks to repay loans. The mediator was formed in response to calls from local SMEs, urging lenders to cease chasing for early repayments or recalling loans. After meeting with representatives from the Hong Kong Association of Banks, HKMA's chief executive Eddie Yue told a press conference that the task force aims to help individual SMEs deal with their funding issues.
金管局喺收到呢啲個案之後呢，就會檢視啦。
Yue said business chambers or companies are encouraged to refer their individual cases to the task force so that they can contact relevant lenders to solve the issues in a swift way. The authority also called on the lenders not to pursue loan recovery, even if the mortgage depreciates, as long as the businesses have consistently made timely repayments and the business conditions remain unchanged. Meanwhile, representatives from the Bank Association reiterated they're not tightening mortgages only because the depreciation occurred. On the contrary, they said they would heed the call of HKMA and provide small businesses and mortgage borrowers a fair and quicker access to loans. 6 of the city's biggest banks, including HSBC, Standard Chartered, Bank of China, Hong Kong, signed on to a pledge to approve all eligible applications within 2 weeks, according to HKMA. The authority added the banking sector had been supportive to SMEs, noting that lenders had allowed around 4,000 small businesses to delay their loan repayments since 2020. It also foresaw that a potential interest rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve next month could help struggling small firms. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
The hospital authority revealed that an uncommon case of a false positive result and an inaccurate medical image were the reasons behind an incident in which a feeding tube being inserted into a patient's airway in Queen Elizabeth Hospital and left undetected in June. The 61-year-old male patient remained in critical condition and is still under intensive care. According to Tang Kam-sheng, president of the root cause analysis panel, the trainee doctor in charge at that time made a wrong judgment whether the tube was in the right place, which led the nurses to mistakenly feed the patient formula milk into his chest area, worsening his condition.
In this case, because the chest X-ray doesn't show clearly the tube of the nasogastric tube, we think that the doctor involved probably doesn't have enough clinical experience to make sure that the nasogastric tube is indeed in the correct space.
However, the authority believed the 2 nurses feeding the patient were following standard procedures. Tang explained that since the human stomach is acid, the way to determine if a nasogastric tube is inserted correctly is to test the pH level of the fluid from the tube. Unfortunately, the nurses tested the fluid from the patient's pleural space, which was infected due to long hospitalization, causing the results to be acidic.
When the nasogastric tube was put in the pleural space, what the nurses, when they are trying to verify the position, aspirate out is probably from the pleural space. And because it is infected, then it is acidic and showing a pH of less than 5.5. That's what we mean by false positive.
The authority gave recommendations to ensure proper X-ray confirmation of nasogastric tube placement, especially for high-risk patients, and to enhance supervision and training of junior doctors to prevent such incidents from happening again in the future. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News. subdivided flat tenants are facing dilemma amid the SAR administration's proposal to tackle the issues of inadequate housing in the city.
3500蚊業主我住咁多年冇加過租。
Tam has lived in this subdivided flat in Sham Shui Po for 6 years. She thought about moving out, but the high rent elsewhere gave her cold feet. The $3,500 rent stayed the same during all these years. But if we have to move out due to the reform, similar units will cost at least $4,000 to $5,000 a month. I can't afford it, she said. Her flat is only around 10 square meters with barely enough space to move around. There is no fire safety system, not to mention poor sanitary conditions, with rats being frequent visitors. Chief Executive Zhang Li demanded the subdivided units task force to revise and submit a new report in a month's time, combining the findings from recent policy consultations and new elements he put forward. Relevant decisions may be incorporated in the coming policy address.
嗱，我哋又想佢整啦，但係又唔想租金貴啦咁樣。
We would love the government to help improve our living conditions, but we don't want the rent to get higher. I don't know what to do, said Tam. One of the government's proposal is to set a minimum floor area, with some political parties suggested to be 7 square meters per unit. However, according to the 2021 census, over 10,000 units, or 10% of such units in the city, failed to reach the requirement.
食都唔夠食啦，又要睇下去邊度攞一啲食物啦。
Deputy Director of the Society for Community Organization, Si Lai Shan, said they were worried that if landlords need to renovate their units to fulfill new requirements, they would likely be passing on the costs to tenants, further burdening low-income residents. She suggested that there should be a proper relocation plan before clamping down on inadequate housing units. Otherwise, the tenants would end up homeless instead of benefiting. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Thai officials confirmed late last night that a small passenger plane crash in the eastern province of Chachoengsao killed all 9 people aboard, including 5 Chinese passengers. The 5 included 2 children aged 12 and 13, as well as 3 adults in their 40s. The other 4 victims were Thai nationals, including 2 pilots, local officials said. The Chinese embassy in Bangkok confirmed that the 5 deceased mainlanders entered Thailand using Chinese passports issued in Shanghai. Meanwhile, Hong Kong Immigration Department said no SAR residents were involved in the tragedy, denying formal reports by the Associated Press claiming the 5 were Hongkongers. A search and rescue operation is still underway at the accident site in a mangrove swamp. The cause of the accident is still unknown, as the so-called black box has not been retrieved, but investigators will analyze the plane wreckage first to identify the cause, local authorities said. The turboprop plane, a Cessna Caravan C208B operated by the Thai Flying Service Company, departed Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi Airport at 2:46 p.m. local time and lost radio and radar contact 11 minutes later, when it was about 35 kilometers southeast of the airport, according to the Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand. It was heading to Tret, a coastal province about 275 kilometers southeast of the Thai capital. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
President Xi Jinping spoke on phone this afternoon with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Xi congratulated the recently elected UK leader, according to the Chinese state media. Xi told Starmer that China is ready to carry out dialogue on equal footing with the UK on the basis of mutual respect, understanding and trust. The 2 countries should expand cooperation in finance, the green economy and artificial intelligence. Xi also stated the world's 2nd largest economy was willing to maintain exchanges with the UK at all levels, promote the steady and long-term development of the Sino-UK relations. The call made at Starmer's request was the first between Xi and the British Prime Minister since March 2022. The final night of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago was filled with festive mood. Before U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris appeared on stage, her two grandnieces, together with actress Kerry Washington, taught the audience how to correctly pronounce her first name.
First you say comma like a comma in a sentence. Then you say la like la 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 la.
Put it together and it's 1, 2, 3, Kamala.
Replacing President Joe Biden's candidacy, Harris admitted the journey was unexpected.
The path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys.
She described the upcoming election as the most important in the life of our nation, and Americans must keep former President Donald Trump out of the White House.
Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails.
On foreign policy, Harris reaffirmed her support for Ukraine and NATO and support for a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, while blasting Trump, who cozy up with tyrants like the North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
By formally accepting the presidential nomination, Harris vowed to be a president for all Americans and to chart a new way forward.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Let's fight for it. Let's get out there. Let's vote for it. And together, let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you.
Together with her running mate, Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, the pair will face Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in the November vote. Harris is the first black woman and first Asian American to lead a major party ticket. If elected, she would be the first woman and Indian American president. Anna Chan, Cable News.
Alibaba said it would convert into a dual primary listing status on the city's bourse starting August 28th. The mainland's e-commerce giant's shares had been listed in New York since 2014, as well as in Hong Kong through a secondary listing since 2019. The conversion would not involve the issuance of new shares or financing. The new designation would allow the tech behemoth shares to meet the requirements for the Stock Connect cross-border investment channel if they are approved by both exchange operators of Shenzhen and Shanghai during their meeting on September 5th to decide which securities to include in the program. With $1.58 trillion in value for its Hong Kong listing, Alibaba is highly likely to meet the requirements, opening the door for mainland investors to take their first bite of the stock as early as September 9th. The shares once reached a 3-month high of $82.85 today in Hong Kong, before finally settled at $82.65, up 1.23%.